Today I will be covering about what is Windows Azure Storage and the table storage and queue blobs. Also I will talk about how we can do about scalability perspective, what are the things we need to take care when we design application. So mostly I'll try to go through with the demos and other things. If you look at the Azure morning, they have been flashed out. The Windows Azure has a product like Windows Azure, SQL Azure, and App Fabric. When it comes to Windows Azure, you can think that there is a Windows Azure consists of three components. What we call is actually compute and manage and storage. So today I'm here to talk about only on the storage part. So evening when you come to the last session, my colleague Wiley will talk about compute and all other areas, also how to manage and deploy application. So you can learn more about that. Okay, in general, when we develop application, web application, our mind always goes to database, where we keep the data. So when you think about the database, what we do is we think about RDBMS. So when you come to the RDBMS, always we have a difficulty to design a scalable RDBMS, because when you want to have it scalable, you have to pay more. So that's one of the things. So the common consideration actually as an architect, we have to take about like, do we have enough space store all my files? Do I need more storage capacity? If my disk is crashed, where the things goes to? What is the storage load balancing that I can do? If my connection lost, what happened to my data? At what in time maximum out of disk space that I need to do, and so on. So these are the considerations we have to come up with. When you think of these are the consideration. What we think of, okay, what are the options are available for me to go? I have these are the storage available. SQL server, network share, so distributed file system, and so on. So all the things I have. But when you come to each and everything, when you look at the SQL, what I need to do is a high availability technology. But if you want to do cluster, if you want to do high available, what you need to do? You need to do clustering. Then you need to keep mirroring. Then you have to do a replication. But it allows you to do single point of failure and so on. So if you talk about network storage, it's a cheap solution. But what happened? There is no redundancy for you. When you talk about distributed file systems, is the replication is ensure the data, so no single point of failure. But you cannot hold in multiple machines. In network attached also the same. It varies from expensive to cheap. When you come to the direct attach is where you have server, you attach the disk directly and write the file in various things and so on. So, but this also not cheap solution. It is going to be very expensive. When you come to storage network, it's provide everything, but at the end of the day, it does not cheap. So, and when you come to this, I need storage, which can provide me cost effective, scalable, and durable, and high available. So which can provide all these things in cost effective manner. There is things what we call Windows Azure Storage. Windows Azure Storage provide you scalable, durable, high available storage system. So the one solution is provide the following abstracts. If you look at the abstracts, blob, table, queues, and drives. Drives is nothing but a blob. We will explain when you go through much more. So if you look at these are the abstracts provided. Each abstraction is actually purpose certain needs in the storage systems. If you compare the storage, you look at the SQL also has a storage, and also Azure storage also. When you come to the last part of the things, the pricing matters. You can look at the price. Per GB is just 15 cents. When you come to the other storage, per GB is $9.99. So you can see the difference is how much is here. And when you come to that capacity, it can store 100 terabyte of data. And the thing is, here you store relational database, here relational data. When you count here, non-relational data. That's a important things here. Look at the things is, if you're creating an account, first you need to use your Azure storage, you need to create account. When you create account, you have a choice where you want to keep your data. Because Azure has a various data center, so you can choose which data center you want to keep your data. Also, you can co-host storage account and compute account together in one data center itself. And it provides you 256 key, which you can put it and access the application with secure manner. Also, it provides you 100 terabyte. Each account, it provides you 5 storage accounts. If you need more, you can always approach Microsoft. They will provide you more accounts. So when you come to the account part, when you create one account, the one account provides you following things like blob, table, and queues. So when you create one account, it gives you your account name.blob.code.windows and so on so. Table.code.windows and queues. So these are the URL that give you where you can able to point and access your applications. And when you come to the Azure, the thing is to manage high availability, we are triplicating your data, not replicating, triplicating your data. So which means that the moment you put your data, it triplicates 3 copies of your data kept in this storage. So when you look at the things, one server is failed. What happened to the data? The Fabric controller, which is monitor all the services, immediately give you from the other backup, it just point you to another one. So at any point in time, you can see that there are 3 copies of your data sits on the Azure storage. All the replication, everything taken, so you can see that there is a redundancy, failover, everything is taken care here. So let us look at how to create storage account in first. In order to create a storage account, you need to log into windows.azure.com, then you log in. When you log in, this is a management portal, so you can go in here and you can create your storage account. For example, if you create a storage account, you just need to say, okay, then you are allowed to choose which region you want to keep your data. So if you are looking at the affinity group here you can choose you can create a group which help you to keep your data on the server, because if you say affinity group, your data, same affinity group, your compute, then it will together, and both your compute instance and storage instance sit in the one data center. So which means that there is no transaction charge. If you keep separately, there is a bandwidth transaction charge. So recommended that always keep both your compute and storage instance in one affinity group. Okay, so you can choose any region that you want, then you just click OK. It create the storage account for you. Once the storage account created, you can access the storage now. So the storage account is created here. Let's look at while it's creating the one I created previously. When you look at the storage account that I created previously, you can see all the abstraction is here, my cloud day dot so and so. So how do I access this using my client? So how do I see what are the files that I can store? How I can do? So there are always the key called primary key. This is a secret key, 256 character, so which you need to copy this key in order to access the storage. So once you copy this key, what you can do, you can use one of the tool like Storage Explorer, which this tool allow you to go and connect the storage. For example, if I want to connect this, I can go here. Cloud day, the storage keys are here. When I say connect, it go and connect my data, my server, and give you all the abstractions. So if you look at the thing is here, my queues and containers and so on so. So if I go queue, I can see my blob storage and everything. Okay, this is the way you can do. How we use in programmatically, we will see upcoming. This is one of the Explorer, or you can also use the free Explorer here. The one is paid that I showed. This is a free Explorer you can download from Codeplex, or you want to go to online, also you can use this. This is one of the sites that you can use. Then you can log in and you can view all your data in online. So whatever the thing, you have to provide all the keys. These are tools that are available for you to explore your storage. So when it comes to the one of the abstraction that we are going to deep, so it's called Blob, binary large object. It's basically came from the relational database. Okay, we know that those are people working on relational database. There is a blob storage, or remote blob storage, and so on. So if you look at the SQL, if you want to do cost, performance, and backup, for example, if you are going into the performance point of view, if you are stored more than 200 GB of data, your backup times get longer in SQL. So to reduce that, because you put your large files like audio files, video files into the blob, then it takes longer time to back up and restore. So to reduce this, what you do, you enable the remote blob to put it on the file storage system. Keep only your data. So when you come to the cloud provide you the SQL Azure. You use your SQL Azure for RDBMS. When you want to put your application that access some files and images and need to process something, you point to the blob storage. So that in one point in time, if you look at the 1 GB, you need to pay for $9.99. When you come here, 1 GB you are paying for 0.15 cents, so which is more cheaper, where the same data goes into the different storage. Your application can access each other. Okay, that's where it helps you a lot. And also it cost effective and load balance. So the blob actually provided two kinds of blob, what we call blob and page blob. When we talk about the blob, actually when you upload the blob, anything is more than 60 MB, you can cut it into 4 MB of files and upload. For example, I have an account, and I'm going to put the image video file. The video file goes here. Because this video file is bigger, what I'm going to do, the thing is I can use the put blob, it break into the small chunks, and each blob has an ID, then it upload concurrently or simultaneously, whatever, sequentially, whatever the manner you want. Once you upload all the block ID, it's become one, then you can do two commit, what we call two-phase commit. So one phase you upload any manner, so block ID 1, 3 you upload, then 2. Then all you can form one blob and commit using this. So for example, this animation explain you, I upload a 2 block now, not in order, in random. I upload a 2 blob, and the third blob I upload. Then the fourth block, when I upload, what happen is it somehow is fail. It does not connection out, or the internet down, or whatever it may be. It is my blob is not reached the destination. So I can retry. I can re-upload the same block. Once I re-upload the same block, then I can commit this entire block. Okay. So once I commit it, it stores on the storage system. So if you look at the thing is, it is meant for mainly for streaming workload. Okay, each you can do the sequence of blocking, and it will give you a two-phase commit, and efficient, continue, and retry. You can do the efficiently, continue, and retry many times. You can also send multiple blocks at one time, and random read. You can read randomly which block you want to do, and each blob, the storage limit is 200 GB. Okay. When come to the page blob, what you talk about, it is single phase commit, which means once you write, it is committed. So the page is actually, you can store up to 1 terabyte. When come to the page, each page cannot exceed 512 KB byte. Okay, 512 byte each. Then when you look at you can also give a range for your page blob. Also you can say I want to cut down. You can also this range to this range you write, rest of the range you don't write. You can able to control all this. So when you look at the 5K, I write first, then I just go string of the middle range, then it taken out, then I override again using some other data, then I come back, I truncate my size into smaller chunk. So which I can able to do all this for. So in high level, you need to understand there are two types of blobs, block blob and page blob. So block is mainly meant for huge files where you can upload the files where you want to do two-phase commit. When you want to do, for example, you have a high logging and so on, so you have application writing and logging, use the page blob. You have a files that you want to write directly, that audio files, video files that you want to put it, use the block blob. That's a high level, I can tell you. So let us look at the small demo of how the blob storage works here. So my screens are not beautiful, so I just come up with some UI here. So my instance are started. Okay, here. So I'm using a photo gallery. So what I do, actually, I just go and somewhere I have my photo gallery here. I create photo gallery, then I want to categorize using the albums, different albums. So when I go into Blob, I want to see it's a folder structure. Okay, so when you look at the slides, I say that you have a container, then account, container, Blob. But when you put it in a folder, how does it look like in the backend? So how do you retrieve as a folder? So how the Blob actually stores in the backend? You can see these things. So I say zoo strip. I just say choose file. Then I just upload few files first. Already uploaded, so I uploaded the 4 files. If you look at the files, what I say that I want to look at the tree view. Okay, so that I can see. Before I go into tree view, let me go to my storage, which is I store in my local, not in the cloud. So I go to container. It's called photo album. So if you look at the thing, is I stored as a Faizal is my trip. Then I put it as a zoo. Then it gives me all the pictures in the folder structure. But if this is the tool, nice tool, so that it's give you this way. Let's say I used another tool. So it gives me this way. Not in the nicer way that the other tool display. Because if you look at the thing is, this one single blob. The blob does not categorize into the folders. It just add you the slash, then you have to read your slash and how you want to display is yours. So if you put it here, it becomes a root. You want a subdirectory and so on, so you can read it. So up to you how you want to do it. Okay, so the blob is actually for the backend is a single blob. So path and everything you can specify the way you want. Okay, for example, if you look at the storage, so if I say tree view, it gives me the same way that it display all my items. So I can read, and I use the tree view to display my content. So if I have something, I can use some other tool to display my content. Okay, so what happened is now I just want to bind this entire thing into the photo gallery. When I choose the album, it has to use the jQuery to read this and display me as a photo gallery. So how I can do it? For example, I choose this tool, I say slideshow. So what happened is go and retrieve my data from the backend. Okay, the same way that I want, then it shows me my entire thing as a jQuery album. So I just use the jQuery and displaying my blobs. So any jQuery that you have, anything you want, you can manipulate. It's as simple as that I did. Is nothing fancy. If you look at the code, I think photo gallery 1 or photos. If you look at the thing is, I just use image controller, retrieve the images and bind it. That's it. So all I'm just reading is basically, if you look at the directories, let me close this. Okay, this one is, let's close this. If you close this, if you look at this, I'm getting the get directory reference from the drop down list. When you go in, then I'm getting the subdirectory. Okay. Second, I'm getting a subdirectory from the blob. Then I'm just pointing to the files and retrieving and binding those things into the jQuery, the image controller. Then I put the jQuery there. It keep rotating for me. So this is how I can able to do my simple things. So I can store any files into the backend. I can able to retrieve and manipulate the way. So if you have files that you want to, let's say for example you have a file, somebody put it, your application point of view, you want access, yes, you can put it. Not just only images here, you can put your audio files, you can video files, and even documents and text file, anything that is need to be put it in, you can able to store here. The next interesting thing is I want to share my file. So the blobs has a three kind of blobs. So what we call is a private blob and a public blob. When you talk about the private blob, is actually accessible by some of the people who knows the access keys. When you talk about the public blob, is anyone can access. Just now that I was shown is a public blob. But even the public blob, I just want to give some specific URL. That URL must contain an expiry date. Okay, so that I pass the URL to somebody, it has to expire after this certain days. So what we call here shared access signature. So what we call SAS. So this allows you to share your file with other parties on period of time. After that, the URL expire. So you don't need to worry about it. So you want to view entire container, you want to give certain blocks or blobs, or you want to give for few files, up to you to decide. So you can create a policy, you can change it backend as you go. For example, this parameter has what is the start time, what is the end time, and I'll also say what is whether I want to give a container level or blob level, or do you want to give a read access only, or can I give a write or delete or list access, what kind of access I can give. Everything goes in the URL. You just specify in the URL, it goes and provide you the entire URL, and when it's a hexadecimal things, then you don't know what it is, but it expires after the certain things. Let us look at the demo on this area. Actually, what I want to give a shared signature for the file 1. So if I enable my shared access signature, this is the URL. I can pass this URL to anyone, then I can ask them to access. So what happens is after 30 seconds, this URL is expired. So once 30 seconds is over, you cannot access anymore on this picture. So I set the limit to 30 seconds. If you look at my code, So as I mentioned, I'm just getting using the directory and subdirectory. I'm getting the blob. Then I get the blob. I get shared access signature, new shared access signature. Then I'm writing a permission. It's called read and write. Also, I just say what is the time to start, what is the time to expire. I just say expiry time is 30 seconds from now. Then I just display the URL. So if I go back to my URL, I just refresh. It's expired already. Its authentication is failed. You cannot access anymore. So if you have an image, if you have a video that you want to rent it out for a certain duration, then you can use this. You have audio that you want to rent it out, you can use this. So you have some document that end user can read in a certain duration only, you can use this. So this is the way that you can able to use this shared access signature. Next thing what we talk about is snapshot. The snapshot actually always has a issue. Oh, 30 minutes already. Okay. So always has a thing is people think that the snapshot is, when you take the snapshot is costable, it is charging, so and so. I will try to clear here how the snapshots works. So for example, I have created a blob. The blob has a 2 ID, 1 and 2. Okay, uploaded. Now I'm going to take a snapshot of this entire blob. So this entire snapshot is free. It's not cost. No charges for this blob. Even though it's the same is available, but no charges. You will be only charged for this. Okay. Now I go and add another block into the same blob. Now I'm going to take another snapshot. Okay. I will be charged for only this block. This is free still for me. Okay. Now I go and update this block. Okay. I just go and update the particular block. Then what happens is you will be charged for the snapshot because you are taking a new update snapshot. So total you have 4, but you will be charged for only 3. Okay, so here what you need to do, you need to take care of how you read, write, and everything, each blocks. That's in your script. That's the best practice comes in. Okay, so it's not every snapshot is chargeable. When you made a modification on the particular block and you take that particular again is a snapshot, then it is chargeable. Okay, so it's a thing that you can keep your various snapshot and for various purposes. So next thing is what we talk about in Azure Storage, Blob Storage itself. We're talking about Content Delivery Network, CDN. CDN is one of the huge concepts that you can, it's available in 18 locations by Microsoft data centers. So if you put a data here, somebody access from US, that backbone will not hit into Singapore. Rather, US is nearest data center, it will route the request. So that node will serve him this image, the images or video files or whatever that has been requested. So CDN is one of the edge server here, which allow you to provide your content delivery network in an effective manner, so that the user will get more faster access and so on and so for the content. Okay, for example, I put a video, upload an image here in the below. This is my data center. So when somebody requesting from one of the edge location, it will request my server. When I request, the first time the file is transferred to the edge server. After the first time, okay, then subsequent time anybody requests, it go from that server. It will not come back to my data center. It will go to the edge server and retrieve. Okay. Then if the data is deleted from my location, okay, it takes few minutes to reflect there, to delete. it's not immediate. It takes few minutes to reflect. So once it's reflected, it's also deleted from all the edge servers that is available. Okay, so this is what we call a CDN, content delivery network. So if you look at the overall in Azure, you have a page blob, blob, shared access signature, and the snapshots and copy blob. You can also copy the blob. You can also lease the blob. Also, you can also do the content delivery network. So these are the high level that I can tell you. Okay, if you need more, you can come to our UG, then we will talk about more on that. Okay. So the another thing is what is where I talk about is Azure Drive. Azure Drive, actually what you can do, you can create your page blob as a VHD, and you can mount into your Azure, okay, as a X drive. So whatever the file you want to put, you can put it there. Or you have a legacy application that you want to move, you put it here and move it to the cloud, and you can run from there. So it is actually is extension of our blob storage, but is used basically the page blob, and where you can write, but you can mount one drive into 16 nodes, 16 instances, but only one instance are allowed to write, others are allowed to read. Okay, that's the thing that we need to take care of here. The size is as page blob size is a 1 terabyte. So next topic, we will go into the Windows Azure table. When I come to the table here, it's a billions of rows and entities in a single table that if you look at. So since we all come from SQL background or RDBMS background, what we think is table always we think about is actually database contain table, tables contains entities. Each entity contain records or rows or records, whatever you can call it. These are things that we go in. So when you come to here, also the same. Azure account contain a table, table contain an entity, each entity contain records. Okay, here the difference is when you go to SQL, you have a relational, primary key, foreign key, a relationship. When you come here, it's nothing called relational. We can keep your data as you think like your Excel sheet. I can have one entity, one record can have 3 entities, another record can have 2 entities. I'll go through later those things. So I can able to store, there is no limit for number of entities. I can have a flexible schema that I want to do it. I have a two-way, I can access using WCF and also REST-based APIs to access my data. So as I mentioned previously, there is no foreign key relationship, and there is one more thing that we don't have a server-side join here. Also we have you cannot create custom index, but there is a clustered index. I will explain what is a clustered index. When you say no count is available, how many records are available, you cannot count those things in the storage here. So you need to have, as I mentioned, you need to have a storage account, tables, and tables can have entity. Entity can have a columns, but the basic columns that we need to have a partition key and row key and timestamp. We will talk about these 3 in detail. When we talk about partition key is uniquely identified. Okay, so this is the partition key that you can look into. Combination of row key and partition key cannot be a duplicate data. It becomes a unique data. Okay, so partition key can be a group. It can be duplicate, but it can be a group of data that you can store. I'll do in a demo all this, then you can be more clear on this. Timestamp only, read only, so that in many people accessing the same data, which need to go for first update, second update based on the timestamp that comes along. So these are 3 property is mandatory. Any table you create, this 3 item will become a mandatory. As I mentioned, partition key and row key become a primary key here. Okay. So yeah, I can do table create, query, and delete, and I can also insert, update, delete. Is nothing different from your SQL as you think, but SQL you use stored procedure, here we use C# queries, that's all the difference is. So when you come to the entities, each table can contain 255 entities, but it can go for the entity names altogether can go for 1 MB size. So those are the mandatory properties that I explained. No fixed schema. You can have a number of schema that you want. Then one table itself, you can manage the schema that you want. One record has this here, another record don't have this column is empty, another record has the things, you can able to do it. Example, these are the schema, that first name, last name, birth date. But if you look at the birth date here, is even though the date and time is a different format that we store in the same schema. When you come to here, I can add another entity to this record number 2. The first 2 don't have any entities. So when I retrieve, I will only get these things. So also I can able to perform filter. I can able to filter the record using the filter function, so which I can able to get only one record when I use the filter functions. So we will talk about this entity group and all this thing in my go into demo. Then the table scalability, also I will show you up to 500 transactions that you can able to do. You can retrieve 500 transactions in 1 per second. And when you say 500, it's actually when I show you the comparison, it is actually goes to 1,000. But Microsoft say 500 because they want to keep always the same level. Because some of the 15 instances they run, it goes to 1,000. Okay, so it is a just base number that you can think of. So with the partition range and partitions, actually how does it work? You upload the data into your storage. It take the number of partition key, number of rows that are available, and divide it and give you the partition range. This partition could go into this range. So how many server it need to serve. So based on the partition key, it store into different servers. So if you don't use your partition key properly, then you will have performance issue. But I will explain how does it, when you will hit that, if you don't use properly. If you use, how is effectively used, because the one request is served by 2 servers, because based on the partition key, it stores into the different servers. Okay. Let me show you the demo here. What I'm trying to do is actually I'm trying to create a small product store which I will add the data using the properly on the partition key and row key. Then I will retrieve this data. I'll also show you how the continuous token is works. One of the concepts we call a continuous token. How does the continuous tokens works, and so on so. So this is actually one of the table that I try to create. Backend, I'm creating a table. So when I enter the product and category, the category become a partition key, and the product is actually become my row key. Okay, so this combination, when I retrieve, how does it retrieve? You can see this. Okay, for example, I just say PSP console, unit price is okay 300, and talk I have 10. If I go back to my table, which is a product master, retrieve, I get the entry that I just now did. So you look at my partition key is console, my row key is PSP and things. So if I go and add another record, for example, I just go add different category, games, then add okay something called MySpace. Okay, I just keep everything same. Then so it is added at the last. So if I go back and add another record, is it going to be at the last or is it going to be here? Because it will be here if I add another console. Because what happens is it sort by partition key and row key combinations. Okay, whatever within the row partition key and row key and the timestamp, it's sort. Okay, by default. Example, instead of adding from there, I will add from here. I'll just say upload data using the flat file. I just say product 1 because I create some of the product, column filter. So it is added at 32 entries for me now. If I go back and to my table, I close, I refresh this. If you look at the partition key and Rowkey, all the data that is available, console and so on, so it is here. If you look at my actual Excel sheet, it is not based on this order. It is different order, but it gives you in a sortable order because partition key and Rowkey and the timestamp is a sorting mechanism here. Okay. If I go back and just say I retrieve product, I just say PSP games. So what happened is I'm using here is link query. Okay. So I'm reading from this and I say, partition key is equal to so and so and read. So it is not new skill that you need to learn. As long as you know C# and Link or VB.NET, you are there already. So what do you need to know additional here? You just need to know only these 3 reference. Microsoft.Windows.Azure, runtime client, storage client. If you are there, if you know what these 3 libraries does, then you are there already. Okay, you are not required to go and learn new skill. These are the things that you need to do, remaining your C# skill. Because I'm using link query, nothing fancy here. Okay, so I just say play. When I go back, I can see all the product that I had. So if I go and select another one, what happened? So all my products are listed here. From the console, it is retrieve and give me the product. So if I select one of the product, then I'm just using again link query and performing and getting the value and converted it to toString and going to display the product that I enter, how many product that I have. As simple as this. Okay. So now the issue is here, when I want to view my product, if you look at the thing, if the data goes huge. Okay. Because each time when you request send to the Azure storage, because there is no count, I cannot do pagination. Okay, the pagination in SQL store procedure and SQL database servers handles me. It retrieve and give me number of rows, and I can do the pagination whenever I request. It goes back and retrieve me the things. When come to Azure, I don't have a count function. I don't have a pagination here. So how I'm going to handle this? If you look at the things, all my products are listed here. So each time when you request, it by default it retrieves 1,000 rows. After 1,000 rows, it gives you the continuous token. Or if your data is stored at a different server and one server is overloaded and another server is there, then it gives you the continuous token. So these are situations that give you the continuous token if you look at. So if I want to control into 3 records only, or 4 records or 5 records, each time I want to show how I'm going to do it. If I look at this script, it's control me into the 5 records. Because I use one of the function called take 5. Then it take the number of records that I want. Then it pass me the continuous token here. If I click next page, you will look at here the script. Okay. So these are the continuous token is what is the next partition key, what is the next row key. When I re-request, this continuous token sent to the server, from there it start reading the data. So which means I can able to paginate and I can able to control how many records I want. If you look at the script here, I just say take 5 from the data query. Still, your C# skills come here, nothing else. So you can still reuse your skill and everything. Okay, we go back this one later. I have other example which is actually we talk about, but since I'm running out of time, I have to move away. So hopefully you understand what is the stable storage, how does stable storage works, it's a partition key and row key, how you can easily manipulate and so on so. Okay, so this helps you to retrieve, store your non-relational data into the storage, and you can able to update, retrieve whatever the way you want to do it. Next thing, what we talk about queues. Queues actually, you know that the queues, whenever we go in Singapore, everything queue, as we know. Okay, anywhere you go is queue. Okay, even you go to Suntec City toilet and the exhibition is also queue. Okay, so it's well known here. So now what we do, we go to the queue. If you go to the cinema theater and you want to buy a ticket and you are going to buy, then there are huge queue. What they do, they usually want people serving you, then it take longer time. Okay, if another person come and sit, the queue move faster. Another person comes and the queue move faster. So this is the way queue is reducing. Then the queue is also, if you look at the theater, its example is a FIFO method, first in, first out. So whoever goes to the queue goes out first. So that is what we call a FIFO. If you go to a hospital, hospital is nothing to do worry about first in, first out. What we call there is a random queue. So if the person goes in, he see the doctor, there is another queue order. Which section he has to go for? He has to go for urine test. He has to go for X-ray. That is a queue there, not the entry queue. But the queue is different. So that also FIFO method. But it's a random. If you look at you, look like a random initially. But the back end, there are queues are available. So this is what we call is queues. So when you come to the queue here, usually what happens is FIFO method. Producer produce a queue and put it on the bottom. Consumer retrieve from the top. So I put it on always the bottom. The consumer retrieve from the top. So that's where the FIFO method comes in. Okay. So once I did this, so the system start processing and so on so. So we look at how the queues in Azure works. Azure also the queues works on the FIFO method. It makes sure that your queue process at least once, which means before the queue is expire, before the queue is deleted, it at least once is processed. So the queue must go and process and it will be deleted, or it will be give you the error message or whatever. Then by default, if you can set the expiry of the message, if you don't set, it will expire after 7 days. Look at the size, just only 8 KB. But because other IBM or other things give you 100 MB of queue size, but when you come to here only 8 KB. Why? For here, if I want to upload one, let's for example image for movie, for example converter MP3 to WMA, I want to convert using my queue. I upload the 100 MB file. Each time my queue need to retrieve, each net need to retrieve 100 MB file. Rather, I put this file into my blob storage. I pass the URL only to my queue. When the queue is retrieved very fast and process it from the blob and copy whatever it has to do from the offline. I need to retrieve my queue very fast. So that is where I'm keeping here my message is very low. So this 8 KB is more than sufficient whatever you want to process, whatever the messages you want to pass. The files and everything, you keep it in separate in different storage systems. So that is the message here, so that Microsoft give you faster response and so on so. And also the queue has a DQ count. What do you mean DQ count? I'll explain in next slides. If you look at the thing is, as I mentioned, producer produce, consumer consume the queue. So if you look at, I get the queue, my worker role, which is a worker role is actually, okay, there are two things what we call web role and worker role. Web role always provide you the presentation. Whatever the UI you see is a presentation layer. You take it this way because later Eli will explain. For this, I just need to explain. Web role is actually a presentation layer. When you come to worker role is which is a long-running process that you want to process continually, monitor and process things. Batch files, queues, and all things runs on the worker role. Now I'm running a 2 worker role. My worker role keep monitoring my queue, whether new queue comes in or not. So the queue comes in, is immediately taking the queue. So once the queue comes in, it takes one time. Then if you look at the message flag, it's become 1. Then second instance also take the another queue, because these two become a disappear, invisible mode. You can set invisible mode how long you want to be invisible, so that server A, server B cannot process same queue more than once. So you can put invisible so that it will not appear to other server. So it's become one time is processed. Once the queue is processed, so the queue is deleted. Then the first queue, what happened is instead of processing it crashed my entire server. Okay, so my server is gone, but the queue come back because the queue is not completed. The queue come back here. Then second time my other server is pulled off, become 2. DQ count is 2. Then my DQ count is comes in. Then it process, while that is processed, my FC looking at the backend fabric controller, it restart my instance. You are not required to do anything. My fabric controller automatically restart my instance. Once I restart my instance, before I restart, this also die because it's a poison message what we call. So when the DQ count is increased number of time, you can say delete off, throw me the error, give me the error, you delete off. So that is where the DQ count help you to see how many time you want to process this, whether the message is properly processed or not, and so on and so. So my FC come back, it take out the things, then the next time is processed, we delete off the message. If I don't allow you to kill me, I'll kill you. Okay, so this is where you can use the DQ count to process your message. So let us look at the small demo here for your queue. So I come up with a product order, because the product order you can order from various sources today. I can order from my mobile phone, I can order from my online, I can go and walk into the things, I can also order from the phone. So what I want to do here, I want to put my order here, then it's a process at the back end of the queue. The queue is going to sequence and process accordingly. When the inventory is lower, it send you the email. I'm not going to do email here, but this is a concept eventually. So now I just select any of the product here. I just say quantity. So the queue is added. If I go back to my queue here, okay, let me see the queue first because my worker role already started and monitor the queue already come. So it is looking into the queue. Where's my queue? Okay, close this, guys. Okay, the queue is taken. Let's see whether you can see here. Okay, I can see the queue here. It's already put me DQ count on because I'm processing once. Okay, so the queue is, I can able to see queue, then the message that I want to pass in, all the product that I pass in. This is my queue ID. Okay, then the moment I go my store, I'm just going to process the message. Okay, let's go and get my product, retrieve and update and so on. So if I go here, because you see the queue here, right? If you go here, the queue is processed, is delete off. So if I add more queues, then it start processing. So the queue actually here, I'm running if you look at here, I'm running a worker role and a web role. my web role receive the order, my worker role process the queue, and goes from there. So if you have any system that you want to perform the queue, Azure has a queue. So you cannot say that I cannot run an promise and so on. So, okay. So still time running. Okay, scalability. So these are the parameters that you need to do in order to do scalability and all other rest of the areas. Okay, so if you look at how Azure is performing the scalability, the front end receiving the request, then it comes here, then the server start processing the load because various partition key data is a partition accordingly. Then you go here, then the one of the server is highly loaded. Okay, so what happened is automatically going to reload to the other server. Whichever the server is less, it's going to reload to the other server if you look at. So if you look at the sequence here, if you are between offload data in order of second, you can offload the data. If the peak is more than 1 minute, it starts to reload the data into the different servers. So it's not to worry, you all done automatically for you. You just need to care about your business here when you come here. So when you come to the partition key when you come to blob is called image. The container name is a partition key. When come to table is a partition key and Rowkey. When come to message is a queue is a partition key. So all three has a partition key where you can able to manage all your keys. When come to server, because there is a one pattern that we usually talk is append only. We append at the last row. What happens is, even though you are appending your data based on the timestamp and so on, so the issue here is append the data into the various location. It's a partition is based on number of partition key and divided by data, then it partition. So even though the sequence of data is one, a different location is stored. Retrieval is delayed. So if you use this way, it partition properly. Use your category as a partition key and the product, then it retrieve very fast. If you look at the performance comparison, if you use a single partition, if I use a 15 VM, I use a single partition, my response throughput is 1,000 requests per second. If I use my partition key properly, my request is actually 6,500 per second. So which is I insert when I insert the data. When I get the data, you look at the 11,000 is if I do properly my partition. If I don't partition properly, then the request is only 3,000. So here the key thing is, if you exceed the first slide that I shown is you are 500 second more than you want to do multiple transaction and so on, so better partition properly. Then in key takeaway here is blob, table, and queues. Each one serves different purpose where you can use wisely across your application, and you can be able to build application on the cloud. So here we don't talk about SQL Azure. We talk about completely a new storage system called Windows Azure Storage. Hope this section is clear about all the storage things in high level. If you need to know more detail or you won't have any queries because time is out, I cannot take any question. So if you have a queries and so on, so you can approach me at the booth outside NCS. We will be there to help you. So if you are interested to get to know about the Azure, we have assessment package, whether your application can move into cloud or not. We have assessment package. Also, we are providing a Windows Azure storage account freely if you approach our counter. So you can Windows Azure account. So if you sign up one of the things, so you can come over there and we can approach us. Okay, thank you.